Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. For years, MAGA has been selling Donald Trump as a political colossus, an inevitable force of nature who cannot be beaten. But everywhere around us, we are seeing evidence that that's not really true. And part of the reason that is happening is because Americans are seeing up close the damage, feeling the pain. People are opposing ICE agents raiding their neighbors, going out in the streets with whistles. They're getting notices that their health premiums are skyrocketing and their food stamps will run out. Federal workers are going unpaid for weeks now as Donald Trump builds a gilded $300 million ballroom no one but him asked for. The more unpopular Trump and the Republicans grow, the harder they try to project strength with lies. Like House Speaker Mike Johnson today trying to convince reporters that keeping the House in recess and the government shut down is actually doing wonders for their numbers.
House and Senate Democrats are openly admitting that this is their shutdown. You have seen the highlight reel of all of them stumbling into admitting that. And yet they're also incoherently claiming that the shutdown is somehow on the fault of the other party. And the people aren't buying it. And that's why the polling continues to show that the approval of Republicans in Congress is rising with each passing day.
Wait a second. Approval of Republicans in Congress rising each passing day? That's a lie. Johnson was very selectively citing a Quinnipiac poll from last week that showed congressional Republicans are underwater by 24 points. He's right. They are up from being underwater by 29 points in July, although that was closer when they passed that extremely unpopular bill. The same poll also shows more Americans blame Republicans for the shutdown by a significant 6-point margin, and that margin is growing among independents. So no, shutting down the government isn't leading to Republican popularity going up by the day. But the entire Trump era is built on this kind of wish casting, psyching people out and faking strength until it is handed over to them. That is the proper context you need when you think about the freakout currently happening over this comment.
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is. But there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28.
That, of course, is two-shirted podcasting strategic genius Steve Bannon declaring a third unconstitutional term for Donald Trump. In that interview, he also claimed Trump was, quote, an instrument of divine will who's being saved by God to save America. Now, Bannon says a lot of things all over the place, talking. Many of them are untrue. But this has worked to flood the zone, as Bannon would say, with this stilted Trump third-term discourse. Bannon's talking to reporters about it, and now so is Trump, and so is Johnson.
I think the president knows, and he and I have talked about the constrictions of the Constitution, as much as so many of the American people lament that. The Trump 2028 cap is one of the most popular that's ever been produced, and he has a good time with that, trolling the Democrats whose hair is on fire.
This is, I think, a classic example of MAGA projecting the power they wish they had. But it comes from a place of real, genuine, palpable political weakness. I mean, take a step back and look at what's being discussed here. One of the most unpopular presidents in American history talking about a third term less than a year into his second term. Today, the polling average kept by Nate Silver shows Donald Trump underwater by about 10 points. He's also at net double-digit negatives in the most recent polls from Economist YouGov, Quinnipiac, Reuters Ipsos, American Research Group, and Gallup. In all those polls, he is at or near his lowest approval level ever. We're talking high 30s, low 40s. And the man who once said he alone could fix high prices on day one is now deeply unpopular on core economic issues. In a new Reuters Ipsos poll today, nearly two-thirds disapprove of Trump's handling of the cost of living. Only 27% approve. You're down to like the most diehards when you're down to 27%. And we haven't gotten any new jobs data because of the shutdown, ostensibly. But all you got to do is look at the headlines of layoffs in the past few days. You got Amazon, UPS, GM, Paramount, Nestle, Carter's, Target, tens of thousands of jobs being slashed by blue chip companies struggling to stay profitable amid Trump's tariffs and what appears to be an all-around slowdown. Today, the Federal Reserve announced a cut in interest rates to try to keep commerce and job markets afloat. But Fed Chairman Jerome Powell also warned investors not to expect another cut this year because it could add to the Trump administration's inflation exploding policies, chiefly the tariffs. And the historically unpopular guy, right, the guy at 39%, okay, and I've covered presidents at 39%. They do not get covered like, wow, everything they touch turns to gold. The unpopular guy, the cause of all these headlines, who is destroying the East Wing of the White House to build a golden ballroom while the American economy disintegrates, this is the guy entertaining talk of an unconstitutional legal third term? Even if Trump were as popular as Republicans are pretending, even if he weren't destroying American livelihoods and building a police state, we're talking about 4 years into the future. Trump is, I hate to remind you, 79-year-old man who appears to have some visible issues getting around alone on his overseas tour this week, kind of just sort of wandering, gingerly navigating hallways and staircases, not always well, not seeming to always be in command. A 79-year-old man who was served burgers and ketchup and a gold crown by the South Korean authorities at state luncheon like a child at Burger King. A 79-year-old man who bragged this very week about dropping into Walter Reed for a previously undisclosed MRI. He says it was, quote, perfect, which, great. Trump also bragged that he aced a dementia test, which he appeared to have confused with an IQ test, and I will tell you, they're not the same thing. We've seen it in the Oval Office before, right? I mean, this is a man who has very obviously aged quite a bit since he took over the presidency. We're not even in year 2 yet. This is not even a year in. Like, really? That is the inevitable force of nature, who must have a third term in 2028 for the good of the country. And you Democrats should cower. Even he acknowledged today it's probably not in the cards, while also lying about his tanking poll numbers.
It's a very interesting thing. I have the best numbers for any president in many years, any president. And I would say that if you read it, it's pretty clear. I'm not allowed to run. It's too bad. I mean, it's too bad. But we have a lot of great people.
I mean, again, who knows, right? If there's one thing I'm consistent on this show is we don't know the future. He might change his mind again. Of course, you got to take the threat seriously because, right, Republicans and Trump are attempting to destroy the country's most basic freedoms, our dearly held democracy, to impose their agenda by force, whether people want it or not, right? And they have been unnervingly successful in that project in so many ways. Yes, they want to mess with elections. They want to render public opinion meaningless, no longer a check on the actions of the people who we elect to represent us. But it's still there and it still matters. They haven't won that battle yet. In stark political terms, not the sort of balance of forces of their legal assault or whether they have the courts on their side or whether American institutions are acting cowardly. No, in just sheer political terms, do the American people like what Trump is doing? Do they approve of the MAGA agenda? No. Trump today is as weak as he has ever been in those terms.